NHS for COVID.
Thank you for attending Worldwide Slot Car Chat number 63. I'm your host, Greg Gabb. Looks like most of our usuals are here. We got John, Luff, Wayne, Don, Petrucci, Leo, Neil, Alan, Big Dead, Dewan, Garth, Owner, otherwise known as Gary, and Little Den, otherwise known as Dennis Sampson, and admitting Chris Walker. And John, I'm going to have you. Nope, not that person. Let's keep. Where did you go? All right, stop moving. Yes, there we go. Okay. So as usual, we'll start with some show and tell. Does anybody have any things they'd like to show and or tell? John, are you saying you'd like to show and or tell something? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, actually, again, this is, I guess, in continuation with our group project, if I can call it that.
Yep.
I got a lovely little pamphlet or envelope in the mail from Leo. And oh yes, of course, I have to. You guys like the big knife? Okay, hang on.
Deckles.
Right. So I will carefully open this.
Oh, that a knife?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not a knife.
That's not a knife. Yeah.
Are you skinning a deer behind you?
Yeah, that's right. That and very large trout.
Did you get that off a rainbow?
There we go. And what? Oh my goodness! Oh, there we go. There are the martini decals.
Wonderful.
So they will accompany the body when it's ready to go.
Awesome.
Well, we should scan those so we can print a couple of extra sets
Oh,
somewhere.
I'd be pleased to scan them. Yeah. Excellent. And now, is a JPEG okay? Is that what you need?
Yeah, JPEG's fine. Just good resolution. Yeah, 300 DPI or better.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, 300. Okay, no problem. Yeah, I think it can go up to 600 if you want.
Yeah, most most scanners built within the last 30 years do 600.
If you want to hang on to those, John,
Okay.
I've already ordered 4 or 5 sets from IndyCals.
Cool.
So if anybody wants what you've got, you can scan them and do resolutions and stuff. I'm pretty familiar with Michael's decals and how they work and how he sizes them and all the rest of the stuff. So I'll probably be using those.
Do you need a knife?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Since we're on the subject of the project,
Yeah.
I have been sent. I regularly, anytime I mention this whole specific car, I always get a few people searching around and sending me pictures, and it's almost always the wrong car. But this time, this guy sent me 4 pictures of various versions, and I said, that's the one. And then he sent me a bunch of other pictures of that car. So now I have more reference material for you. So let me share my screen here. And this should be the model kit.
Yep.
But he sent me this little cartoon drawing that has information in Japanese, but he kind of liked the artwork, and I can't disagree. The artwork is pretty cool. And of course, here's a number 4 right there. But we have real cars as well. This is what he first sent me to help me determine, tell him which one it is. Second one from the top there, number 4. And there's a nice side view of it.
That's a beauty. That's nice.
Yeah, that's a great shot. Can I zoom on this? Yeah, there we go.
And for Alan, we can make it smoke.
And then this one's pretty good too. Nice show on the top a little bit. I wonder if that's the same race. It might be the same race. No, different helmet.
Yeah, that's Jochen Maas driving. They were the team. Jackie Eakes and Jochen Maas.
Okay. And then that's another model of some sort, not a slot car, but and I don't think it's a Tamiya model. Could be, I guess, but it's a model. This was found on some, like.
That's a Renaissance.
What was that?
That's a Renaissance model.
Oh, okay. Oh, it says right there, Renaissance number 63. And 1/43 scale even. Cool. And then there's a nice front view. And then there's the showroom number 2. So you get a good slant nose. I think that's got the longer tail on it and the shorter wing. But yeah, there we go. I think that's the Tamiya kit. That's the glamour shot of the Tamiya kit. That's a new one I hadn't had before. Zoom in on that a little bit. There you get a real good view of the wheels and stuff. Yep. That's it. Anybody want to review any of those pictures? I'll send those all to you, John.
Oh, thank you. That'd be
view-
great. Yeah.
Anybody else who wants them, of course, I'm sure.
Yes, please. A
Leo?
view of the rear. A view of the rear would be helpful
Oh,
because on the French car, there's quite a bit of detail of the turbo outlet and things like that
yeah,
at the rear. So a shot of the tail end would be useful.
I mean,
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Yeah, because to your point, Leo, the model has quite a lot of detail at the back. You're right.
Yeah.
I'll take pictures of my Tamiya kit that my friend did the paint and decals on for at least the body reference. for
Yep.
the tail and all that. I'll take a whole bunch of pictures of that.
Right.
But yeah, that's it on that. Anybody else got anything they want to show and or tell?
I do.
Yay, Chris got something to show.
Where am I here? Speaking of Porsches, I have finished. Why don't I see this? Why isn't that there?
Everyone hold your applause until
Not there, is it?
I see a blue number 60 Pioneer Porsche.
Okay, it's up.
There now, yeah.
Okay. This is built for the Porsche 997 Proxy that's coming up. So as long as you have a Porsche 997 body, chassis are open, rubber tires, and a motor restricted to 23K, I think, for this one. And since I was extremely lazy, now how come I can't do this? Where is everything gone?
No, it was there. It was there.
Was it?
Yeah, it was there. Yeah,
You
open
share
it
it?
up. I just click on it. It came up. There you
There?
go.
We see
Yeah,
the
oh, well, look at those shiny tires. Are you kidding?
Oh my.
Whoa.
and that nicely cut lead.
Sorry?
And the nice lead that you cut right to size. It's beautiful.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, this has been mailed off. And it's out there. So this weighs probably about 80, I think is 83 grams, body included. So I'm actually holding out a lot of hope for this. The McLaren that I showed you guys a while ago for the Can-Am series qualified on pole for the first race. So I'm looking forward to that. And this one, in testing, this was a little bit quicker than my McLaren. So
Wow.
I am cautiously optimistic. It obviously depends on what everybody else builds and sends in, but we shall see.
I have questions.
Mhm.
My first question is, what kind of motor is that?
Slot.
That's a Piranha.
Oh,
Yeah, we're restricted. I think this was 23 max or 22 max or something like that. So I've got a bunch of Piranhas, the 21.5K Piranhas. They tend to perform better than, like a lot of motors. They tend to turn a little bit more than their stated ratios. And I just think they're great little motors. So that's tucked in there.
My other question was, how is the guide being held in?
How is the which?
The guide.
That is a little funky little NSR screw.
no, I think that's the scale auto screw.
It looks like it's completely flat with the tiniest little pivot for this for your.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scale auto screw, Chris.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They They come standard with the scale auto guides.
Okay.
Do they come standard on any scale auto cars they might have? Like it's
No, because the standard guide on the scale auto car is just clips in.
a press.
But if you buy the aftermarket guides like the 1303s or 1304s or whatever that number is, then they come two in a packet with two of those little screws. It's basically a very, very flat head with this tiny little cross divot in the top, but they're very nice. They're good. They work well.
I mean, it sounds like
Dennis, you'll find that NSR make one of those as well.
Sorry?
NSR make one of those as well for the NSR 8689.
Yeah.
So if you put a screw top guide into the NSR 8689 formula car, that's exactly what it looks like, a very flush head with a cross
okay.
string.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that they had them. Sorry, then Chris is probably right that it's an NSR version. It just
Well,
looked to me like the scale auto one. I haven't actually seen an NSR one.
it came out of the NSR package that I ordered.
Okay. So what guide is that then? It's an NSR guide?
Yeah, that's the NSR wood truck or their deeper guide, but I massaged it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are
Cool.
sort of interest. I used some of these reduced outside diameter bushings to pop in the front end. That stops the axle from vibrating back and forth a little bit, which causes steering going down the straight. So that's certainly a plus. And then I'm using a slotting plus axle tube on the back end, which is a godsend for stiffening up the back end.
And do you have lead underneath the rear axle, Chris?
Sorry?
Do you have lead underneath the rear axle?
No.
You're
And
allowed
Chris,
to, but he doesn't have any.
I was just going to say, Chris, I noticed you rounded the edges on the front tires.
Right.
Very cool.
Well, that's nothing new, really.
I mean, anything to make it not catch on oddities in track, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Wayne, why did you ask about lead under the rear axle?
Because underneath the spreader tube, it looks like I can see a silver surface.
That's just the surface of the setup plate.
Yeah, this is
Just a gap in there.
yeah, this is a big diamond triangular shaped hole. And this piece that you can see in there is just the surface of the aluminum setup block.
Yeah, just reflecting the light differently and therefore looks like a different color.
Yeah.
It does look like you used some tape on the motor to hold that wire in place, right?
Yes, this is highly unobtainium exotic aluminum tape that you use for taping up your air conditioning ducts.
Yeah, it's back.
I bought a roll at Home Depot 15 years ago, and I 2% of the way through it, I'll be securing motor wires for everybody for the next 100 years.
And I'll ask the question that no one's asked yet, I think. What's underneath the nylock nuts on the wings of the motor pod? Is there any silicone O-rings or foam pads or anything like that?
They're hidden. You can make one out here, just under that nut. So they are underneath the pod lugs and on top of the pod lugs all around. And then I use them on top of the body post holes, and then I just cut down the body posts a few thou correspondingly to set the right height. There's a different colored one on the back, a black one.
Very nice.
Yeah, so hopefully this will be, if my Can-Am car is done well, this should do well, because this is, as I said, this is tested out a little bit quicker than the Can-Am car. So we'll see how we go from there.
And have you got your rear wheels look like they're full of holes? Is that correct? Or the actual rims? Can I see the reflection of holes in the far wheel?
Those are, just NSR hubs.
Air hubs.
Yeah.
Are they empty?
No. Dennis, we didn't even have to ask. No, they're not.
We've been through this.
They were, there's a bunch of guys now Thunderslot themselves are coming out with these things. I got Ernie to make a bunch of them. Prior to that, Dennis has been making them. I've been making them out of old commercial rubber bits and cutting them into strips and gluing them on. Now both Thunderslot and Ernie Mr. Slot Car have just die cut some actually rings, so you don't have to cut them and glue them and tape them and dick around where I had to do before. They pop them on and cut them down to size and away you go.
And now we're running 20 by 10 NSR Ultra tires or something there.
I think these are 21 by 11s. They started out as 21 by 11s. And these particular ones are super grips.
Super grip, that little bit harder.
Well, they're a little bit, a tiny bit harder coming out of the package. Once you massage them a bit, they all get pretty much softer. And it is a 10 race Proxy. I haven't had issues in the past with Ultras wearing out over a long Proxy series, but to be honest with you, all of these tires are like bloody making cookies. Like every batch is different and there's no two pairs alike. So I mounted up 2 or 3 different tires, trued them all to the same size, treated them the best of my ability, made them equal as far as I could, put them on the car, and there's 0.2 of a difference between the fastest and the slowest ones. And that's, so you just basically have to hope with rubber tires you end up with a magic pair.
You kind of hit on one of the questions that I had, and I'm sure you probably went through this process before, but the tire treatment process, could you kind of review? Because I'm just looking at those tires and I'm amazed.
Yeah, who wants to take that one? Chris, you want to take that one, or what? What you guys?
I'm sorry, to on your question again?
The process that you went through for getting the tires in that condition that you have for the Proxy, they look amazing. I'm just trying to, what could you, I know you've probably gone through this before and probably some of the previous videos, etc.
They look amazing. I mean, preface that with, they look nice and shiny now. After about 4 or 5 laps, they'll just look like normal tires. The process is true the tires, glue them on, true them, and then in the tire machine, I use a rag with some lighter fluid, Zippo or Shellite, and apply that to the tire surface. Run some laps, do it again, do it again, do it again. And then to, sort of from a show point of view, these have had one final coating of lighter fluid and have not been run. So they will not stay shiny like that for more than 3 or 4 laps.
Okay. Yeah, I do that process. I was making sure. I've heard you go through that iteration before, and I just hadn't seen the results. So this is just, it looks wonderful.
Yeah, it's more like, when it comes out of the box at the Proxy and the guy opens them, everybody looks at everybody's tires and go, "Ooh."
Yeah, it's a completely mind game thing.
Right. It's not. If you could keep them staying like that, it would be great, because a nice shiny surface will won't hold dust as much as a ragged surface will. So unfortunately, once you run these around, even a smooth wood track is fairly abrasive. So within a couple of laps, they will look like the front tires.
Hey,
Can I
Chris.
tell you what I find most surprising of all on this build? That is the amount that you've taken out of the front track width by rounding the front tires. They're more rounded than anything I've ever done to mine.
Okay.
For wood track use, I'm not sure that you want to lose up to potentially looks like 1 millimeter per side,
Well,
2 millimeters across your total width. Don't you want the front to be as wide as you can?
There is still plenty of time to answer the proxy, Wayne.
There you go, Wayne, your bluff has been
Tell us how
called.
quick of a car you can make.
I want to touch back on the tires thing because you didn't mention oiling. Do you not do the oil step or?
I used to oil. To be honest with you, lighter fluid is oil. It's petroleum based, so it's just very light oil. If I was going in a sprint race, I would probably oil them. But I tell you, after 4 or 5 applications of lighter fluid and running them in, they're sticky.
Yeah. And do the proxy hosts tend to redo anything, or is
No,
it
all they can do is clean the tires with a roll of tape.
with tape? Okay.
Yeah, we can't. Otherwise, I would say, clean them. If you ran this for 20 laps and then just put a little more lighter fluid on it and put it back on the track, you would be stunned at the increase in grip for a half a dozen laps.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the lighter fluid is the most effective or the most effective way. But I guess the reason that I don't oil the tires regularly. It's like a brand new set of tires. I'll go ahead and oil them maybe once or twice early on in the series, and then just the lighter fluid. But is that even necessary? Maybe not.
I used to oil pretty much exclusively, and to be honest with you, I've gone completely away from oiling the tires and use lighter fluid or shellite, and the results are better, in my opinion, than oiling.
I ran a brand new set of tires on my North Wales Cup track that have seen no oil ever, but only lighter fluid.
Right.
I put the car down initially with its original tires, which are traditional wheels, and then I switched them for a completely different wheel pattern and only lighter fluid. And after practice, I decided I was going to go with the new set because they were more forgiving to drive. Bearing in mind that the wheel and the insert, etc., was completely different. The tire pressure, if you like to call it that, was different, although the diameter was identical. But this set of tires had never seen any oil. And I can say that I'm happy with lighter fluid or barbecue lighter fluid alone.
Well, I haven't oiled a set of tires for at least a half a dozen rubber tire proxies historically now.
How long do we think any treatment will actually benefit the car in the proxy? I mean, it might not even last the whole round. It might be gone by the time it arrives at round 0.
Oh, no, it'll be fine. It does soak in and soften the tire. And all the other 30 guys in the proxy are in exactly the same boat. I just got my car back from the GT3 proxy, and the tires are wonderful. I did a quick clean, put them on my track, and the car was completely fine.
I'm just watching the Can-Am round 0. I'm about 80% of the way through it, and I haven't seen your car run yet, Chris, unfortunately.
I think mine is second last.
Yeah, I need to get to the end. Unfortunately, I didn't get time. I was watching it while I was in the shower earlier. It was on the windowsill, and I was trying to catch up with it, but I still didn't get to the end.
So what do you think of the cars in general?
There's a lot of underslots.
Yeah,
the performance. It's interesting to see how many different varieties of chassis designs, tire combinations, and motors can all perform so similarly.
Right.
However, there's a definite improvement as I'm watching the later runners. I think I'm inside the top 15 now, and I can see that I can literally watch the car go around. I don't need to look at the clock. I can see that it's just so much easier to handle and so much quicker because it's under control.
Yeah. Well, and Dennis will attest to this. I mean, if you go through the spec sheets on any of the proxies, more cars are similar in their parts than dissimilar in their parts.
Well, I did notice that with the GT3. I noticed that there was a heck of a lot of scale auto in that Proxy.
Right, and it's never been the parts you use, it's what you do with the parts. That's always been the biggest, I mean, some of the tail unders are running exactly the same Thunderslot chassis and exactly the same motors, and they're 4/10 off the pace.
I'll tell you that what I did notice was astonishing was when Rob, CGY Racer, got his own car out on his own track. And I think the fastest lap at that time had been about a 6.8 something. And then he threw his car down, and within about 4 laps, he'd clacked off a 6.6. And it was like, that's a slotted based car.
Mhm.
And you can see that he built it and prepped it at home, and it's built for his track.
Right.
And I don't know if anybody's going to beat the 6.6 that he's done. I'm presuming you did, because
What
you
two
told us that you were on pole.
does anyway.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I've just seen him run the car. So yeah, it's very interesting, and I feel as though I'm learning a lot by watching them, although they are laborious.
What's kind of interesting to realize too, once you've looked at a couple of proxies, is that there are unfortunately quite a few people out there who are quite capable of taking a standard Thunderslot car and actually making it slower before they send it in.
Dennis, it takes effort to do that, doesn't it?
They work on these things, and the guys have these ideas that this is going to make them better, and doesn't. There's a lot of stock cars that are probably quicker than some of the stuff that gets sent in for proxies.
Well, that gives me
Dennis,
some confidence then that I should be able to send the car away and actually enjoy it.
I mean, when I enter Proxy, it's so little. It's basically car out of box, make sure stuff is round to send in. But I'm not a massive Proxy.
But I mean, to my mind, that just destroys the idea of a proxy in the first place.
Yeah, I mean,
proxy racing has devolved a little bit from where it started, right? Because proxy racing started with people building their own cars and sending them in, and now it's gotten down to the point of people tuning a particular brand, and that you're even getting like a whole proxy just for Revo slots. Right, and what does that do? It's just, I guess, showing who can tune a Revo slot. That's all, right?
To be fair, for the last 18 months, there hasn't been a whole lot of racing going on.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
But I think you're right. I think that kind of thing has been becoming more common. I think it's because there are proxy organizers and hosts who have seen the what you're used to as proxies, but felt intimidated by joining them, and so then they want to run more newbie proxies, and so you're getting a lot more newbie proxies where it's the rule set is considerably more limited, because they want newbies to feel comfortable in joining the whole proxy world. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But you're right, you end up with, because one of the ones that I participated and hosted in was a Carrera digital proxy. So it was like all of the cars were just straight up Carrera digital cars, maybe with some true, urethane tires or whatever the case may be, magnets pulled, just the most basic of blueprinting stuff. But it was essentially Carrera cars. And that was an easy proxy to enter. It was fearless to enter. You could say, well, we weren't allowed to do a whole lot, so that's why I didn't win. But there's no shortage of proper proxies, right, Dennis? There's
Well, for example, the Can-Am proxy was like one of the prime proper proxies to start with. But this year there are 21 Thunderslots in there. And the advent of Thunderslot, to my mind, killed the Can-Am proxy.
But was it mostly NSR before that? Or
no, it was all kinds of bits and pieces, because nobody else was making Can-Am cars.
Right.
So you had to be a whole lot more, a whole lot more inventive to get it all. And I mean, Big Dan will tell you there were proxies back 15 or more years back that Phil Kalbfell in Tasmania organized. That was a round the world global proxy. And that was for Can-Am cars, and every one of those was scratch built. That was, to my mind, that was a great proxy. That was proper proxy. Nowadays, they're starting to turn into what I call strapping tape proxies. It's a matter of who could put what kind of tape where underneath the chassis and make it go faster than somebody else's. So, yeah.
It's not the way it used to be. It's not the way it used to be. That's the thing. Things move on. You can't.
Yeah, but I mean,
Giovanni for building
that's
good
fine.
cars.
And obviously things move on. But the point to me is if I have to try and build I like to build cars. I race so that I can build, not the other way around. And to me, it's getting to the point where it's why should I spend all that time trying to make a car that's going to go just a tenth of a second faster than a Thunderslot with some strapping tape underneath it? Yeah, unless there's something else in the proxy for me, like the genre or the some specific challenge, I'm done with it, quite honestly.
Well,
And I guess, I mean, a lot of my whole attitude about it is that I've had my butt kicked in Technicolor and wide angle stereo for the last 2 or 3 years now, because everything that I build gets its ass kicked by a Thunderslot with strapping tape under it. So yes, it's a little bit of sour grapes. There's no two ways about that, and I'll admit it right up front.
I was gonna say, it sounds like the problem isn't the proxy organizers so much as the manufacturers have come around to
Absolutely. The plastic cars that we can get hold of, the cars we can buy over the counter nowadays, are just so much better than anything we got 10 years ago or 5 years or 7 years ago.
I think to your point, Dennis, that's really the evolution. That's what.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. And I don't think that that's a bad thing.
No.
And obviously, if there are guys out there who are not getting any racing other than proxies, then great, let's keep going. And that's why the proxies are still well subscribed.
But well, listen, we all appreciate your little wine vinegar. It's awesome.
Thank you. Before we
go ahead.
Before we finish with, before I finish, because I'm done with the whining, I just want to say happy birthday to Dewan.
Was it his birthday? Well,
it's his birthday today.
Oh, hey,
Everybody-
Dewan, 21's a bitch, man.
Yeah.
Well, 36
So,
Happy
degrees.
birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to
And
you.
to that,
Happy birthday to Dewan. Happy birthday to you.
to that end,
Anyway, yeah, I saw it on my Facebook feed this morning. Today is Dewan Clark's birthday. So happy birthday, my friend. I hope it's- and I
So
hope
that
it's a good one.
gets you that step closer to the Gotham, or what do you call it? The Batman track, right?
Batman track.
yes, very close, very close.
Okay, sort of Wayne Manor. I'm sorry, Wayne Manor.
Do you think if we get 52 participants into the chat, we could actually get Greg to sing that every week?
He's in Formula M. He's in America.
I want to see him do it. I want to see him
He's
do it on
in
the
Canada.
didgeridoo. Do it on the didgeridoo.
I actually want to share my screen for a second.
Anyways, before we get off the proxy topic, and before I introduce Travis, who is gonna give us his slot car related history, Mr. Slot Car Guy, I did want to say there's 3D printed proxies that you can join, and that requires a whole lot of doing and tweaking and stuff. So anybody who's like Dennis and tired of proxies full of ready to run cars.
He's not tired of proxies full of that. He's tired of getting his ass wiped by those guys. That's what it is.
Yeah. So join some 3D printed proxies. They're
Yeah,
popping
I know.
up like,
I was supposed to join the last one, and then I had computer troubles. Yeah.
and
Anyway.
I started the process of designing a multicolor body and never joined that. But now there is yet another 3D printed proxy that you can join.
Oh yeah, I saw there's a 3D printed 908
That's what it was, 908.
proxy going on. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, they're popping up like gophers or whatever you want to say. So the world of proxies is your oyster. If you're interested in proxy racing, just do some proxy racing searches. Now, Travis, I'm gonna put you on the spot, but you're not by any means required to be on the spot. Travis, as some of you may have already seen, is That Slot Car Guy. He has a YouTube channel called That Slot Car Guy, right? Travis the Slot Car Guy or something like that. Does
Wait a minute, who doesn't have a YouTube channel? Come on.
we all?
Come on.
Most of us do. He does car reviews and tunings and stuff like that. But I would certainly like to know more about Travis's slot car history. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, you've put me on the spot here, so I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest. I snuck into this to watch and look and learn, and you've actually you're throwing me. First off, look, I've been watching
Travis.
Yes. Obviously, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. You can probably tell by my accent. But first of all, thanks for letting me join. I've been watching and listening for probably a couple of weeks now, anonymously. I've just been too nervous to join, so I thought, stuff it. I'll turn the camera on and say g'day. But I couldn't figure out the camera at the first instance. So today's the first day. My history, well, compared to you guys, is nothing. Yes, I've dabbled in slot cars. I'm pretty much a collector of everything. I started with video games, and then I moved on to die-cast cars, which I've got a huge collection of that. But I watched that area of collecting grow and mold and turn into this massive beast. And I've always wanted to go slot cars. So I stopped all my social media for die-cast cars and jumped straight into slot cars. And now I'm trying to, I guess, reinvigorate and just do something different with the hobby, trying to, because, you know, how do you reinvent the wheel? But from my die-cast days, I've come across, and I'm blown away by slot cars. Always wanted to join a slot car crew, a following, but as a young fella, I didn't have the money, and I had, I think, AFX when I was younger, and now that I'm an older adult, I started just buying slot cars left, right, and center, and went, you know what, this is my passion. I'm going to go for it. So I started the YouTube channel, which is going okay. Yeah, like you said before, everybody has a YouTube channel, so I guess it's hard to stand out. But my goal is just to, I guess, promote as many companies I can, good and bad, but also enjoy the evolution, because these slot cars have gone from, and I've got a lot of vintage stuff, to today, which is the 3D printing stuff. I'm just mind blown how fast this hobby is growing. So what am I doing? I guess I'm just trying to promote the hobby in Australia, and if it reaches the rest of the world, well, you know, kudos. But I'm more here to listen to you guys. And the knowledge I'm hearing, I'm sitting back going, Trav, you know nothing. But, you know, it's interesting. It's an interesting hobby, but it's definitely growing. And I think there's a lot of legs still left in the hobby.
I think it's great that you're transitioning through kind of car related hobbies. And so you were doing diecast collecting. Did you already have a YouTube going with diecast stuff?
No, I had a good Instagram following, which I cancelled many years ago, and I restarted it. But the slot cards have always been there, but I just never lent on it. I mean, I was into customizing 164 slot cars. Die-cast cars, and then I looked at the slot car world and thought, the same stuff's happening here. But I've always wanted to jump into slot cars, and I just took the leap about 3 years ago and honestly invested a lot of money into it and went, this is what I want to do. So it's always been there. I just didn't focus on it heavily, you know, a couple of years ago. Raced at my local track, which I still miss now because we're into, you know, similar lockdowns to the rest of the world. So it's really died. But no, my history is nothing like your guys. I'm definitely an amateur when it comes to the knowledge that you're throwing out. I'm here just to learn from the legends, to be honest.
And that's why we're here, right? To talk, to share information between each other, but also so that guys who are new can just get, you're not, it's like we're your life preserver for jumping into the deep end. You're getting pushed into the deep end, but we're there with a life vest, with a life ring, or whatever you want to say.
I think people forget. I mean, this has been going since the 60s, and you've got to respect the legends and the knowledge. But again, this hobby is growing and merging into something that we've never seen before. We've gone digital, you know, we've gone 3D printing. So there's that. I love analog. I'm an old school. I love the old school racing, but like you just said, then I'm an amateur compared to you guys. Definitely. I mean, I've been racing for many years, but I sit back here and I'm taking notes, going, these guys are just next level of stuff. And here I am running a YouTube channel, going, you know. So it's look, I'm having a crack. I'm loving it. But I've literally come to listen, learn, and if I can put any input, I've got lots of stuff coming from brands that are sending me stuff to check out. So it's good to see how different slot car companies are actually tackling the hobby. So it's really, really good to see. It's been good.
Well, the other thing too is we're all a support group, and you can never have too many.
You never have.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct.
You never have
correct
people supporting you, is what you mean, right, John?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Listen, we got to send you one of our tokens.
Oh, the trophies.
Yeah. Yeah. It's.
And of course, you are personally acquainted with Big Den and Gary Gaza and pretty much anybody with an accent similar to yours, right? You know them personally, right? That's how it works.
Yeah. As long as you can understand me, I'm happy. But I was doing a video 2 days ago, and I remember Dennis, I watched last week, and he loves cutting the booties off the feet. And I thought, do I chuck that in one of my videos and see if Dennis watches it? I was going to say this because it had no booties. I'm thinking, Dennis, no, I didn't say anything. So Dennis, if you're listening now, mate, I was going to mention you, but I didn't. Sorry.
All right, just as well. Hey, you guys can see his track. Have you got any photos there, Travis, of the track? Because he's got a gorgeous track.
Huge.
See his
To be
layout.
honest,
It's
I am an amateur when it comes to photography. When it comes to this stuff, I've just learned how to turn my camera on today. So I'll see if I can share a photo. But I'm live streaming. I can actually walk around if you want to have a look.
So you got a big shed or a barn or something out there, right? Where the track
big
is?
shed. Yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a big shed. Yeah.
Okay.
If you've got pictures you want to screen share, feel free. If you want to move your camera around, I can spotlight you. Whatever you want to do.
Probably easier if I move the camera because I end up sending something you might not want to see.
All right, go ahead.
Let's go for a tour.
Go for a walk.
So that's
that track. Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay. How about that, guys?
Wow.
So I've changed
That
this
is
too many
so
times.
nice.
But it's a big shed. I've got a decent.
Tell us about it, man. Jealousy.
So that's the shed.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, and there's a little collection going on. So I've got too many cars. Under this track, there's a lot of storage underneath here because I've got toys and toys and toys, but I can't even show it all. There's all toys
hold
under
on.
here.
There's no such thing as too many cars.
Oh, tell my wife that.
Is that an XE or an XD in the background?
What's
Is
that,
that an
mate?
XE or an XD in the background?
No, that's a Volvo 740 Turbo.
Oh,
Don't
don't
hate
worry
me.
about it then. Yeah, of course I don't. Yeah.
Travis,
Just as well it's in the background. Put a cover over it.
Did you have a feeling of any trepidation when you decided to become a YouTube channel on the subject of slot cars? Did you feel that you weren't qualified to stand in front of the world and start telling them about what you knew?
You know what? You just hit the nail because I was even nervous to turn the camera on now. And again, I've just learned how to do that because some of the stuff in my videos, some of them are funny because I do get stuff wrong. I have a lot of knowledge, but compared to this forum right here, I don't. So I know that. But you know what? What do I do? Sit back and not do it? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. Kudos to you. Get out there, do it. I mean, you can't do a bad thing when you just get out and just expose the hobby and your passion. Are you kidding? It's fantastic.
It's funny because I've had a lot of comments that I've laughed at, and look, some of them you go, geez, why did I say that? Or, but you know what? I'm having a crack, and if it helps the hobby, that's my goal. We're going to keep this. I've got a 3-year-old son. I hope when he's 18, 19, he's pressing the trigger or pulling the trigger. Mate, all I can do is try, I guess. But I'm just nervous.
Pressing it when he's 8 or 9, not when he's 18 or 19.
No, honestly, and there's so many aspects that he'll latch on to something. It might be the electrical part. It might be the scenery aspect of what you're doing. You never know. But the most important thing is expose your little one to it, and it's great. For example, our daughter has a little slot car company. She actually makes. In fact, she's making a slot. She makes 1/32 scale. Bug-eyed sprites. In fact, she's making one for a customer right now.
I saw that last week. I saw that last. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And, but, if I need something soldered really well, I ask her.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, she's so, well, young eyes, steady hands, and
Young
patience.
eyes. Young eyes. Yeah, well, I'm getting old as well. I feel it.
Oh, no. We're old. Sorry. You're not old.
But I appreciate it. I really thanks for letting me join. I'll shut up and sit back now and learn.
How many members have you got in your club?
As in the racetrack?
Yes. How many members you have driving around it?
Look, say at my house here, I
Yes.
don't, because I'm in regional Victoria, so I'm in Country Vic, which I'm a bit far away from everyone. But our local tracks, we've honestly only got really one big local track in Melbourne, Australia, and that's Mr. Slot Car in Hallam. He's really the only major track we have here in Melbourne, Australia. It's weird. We've got more home tracks than we do club tracks. I mean, look, COVID's a big thing, but me officially, I use this as a test track for all the cars, for my filming. I honestly don't have time to race because a video could take 6-7 hours if I'm really giving it a good effort. Plus, I work full time, so it's tricky. It's tricky.
It's just you driving around that track. Then you don't have no neighbours coming with you to race.
Just a loner with my Volvo sitting there going, "Oh, somebody."
I think they call that really no mates, right?
Yes. Should have called me Simon.
Well, I was going to offer some personal advice. So I will qualify this advice as Greg does not know everything. Greg is providing advice based only on personal experience.
Say it isn't so.
And that is exactly the advice I'm giving. When you're doing your videos, you're talking about how you like something, why you like something, but you're not framing it as this is the reason, right?
Possible.
There is only one reason, right? You're framing it as this is my personal experience, this is why I like it, etc. And when you're sharing knowledge about something, you're saying, this is what I've learned, this is how I've discovered to do it, this is not necessarily the only way or the best way to do it, that kind of thing. Because otherwise you get hate from people being all, bro, that's not the way I do it, that's not the right way to do it.
But I still get that now. Some guy said, your accent grinds my gears, and I'm like, huh? I can't change that.
Aussie accents are sexy. I want an Aussie accent.
Okay, but I can't change that. No, but definitely, I'm having a blast. But yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me join. So I'll like I said, I'll shut up and I'll sit back and take some notes.
Anytime you feel like interjecting, if you have a question, if you have personal experience you want to share, and when we say show and tell, even if you just bought a brand new car that the guy last week
I've got a lot of show and tell.
You know what? We're filling time here, buddy. We don't have a script. We're not doing any editing. We're filling time is what we're doing.
Well, I've got a new product SRC sent me, which is kind of confusing, to be honest. I could probably show you guys and get your advice on it. It looks like it measures the magnet's force from the motors, if that makes sense, the magnet pull down from the motors. Do you want me to show you it?
Yeah.
This is the new SRC magnet, Marshall. I've seen a picture of it.
Are they doing
they're
doing their own?
I'm about to do a video on it. I've tested it and it works, but I'll show you. This is like a premiere because I haven't filmed it yet. Hold on. If I can work this camera out, I told you I'm no good. I'll just hold it up. So this is the box that came in. It's a nice little fancy box. Let me just get my first show and tell. I'm a bit nervous, to be honest.
I didn't know it was making a magnet, Marshall.
Is that is that too much shine? So obviously you sit your car on the rails and it measures the magnetic pull from the motor. So I'm still learning how to use it so I can review it properly. But I'll get your questions. Have you guys used something like this before?
I didn't know it existed. Anybody else?
It's a magnet, Marshall will do exactly the same thing.
Correct.
It looks like this one is designed specifically for the motor, though.
Well,
Tracy's got it showing a photo.
Like you can't measure traction magnet downforce.
It'll measure whatever's pulling on the rails.
Pull it out.
Correct.
Take it out of the box.
So it just does the motor. It just does the motor. So I've done a magnet on it and it doesn't test the magnet, but when the motor's running, because obviously it's active, it just does the pull from the motor. So for an example, I ran the Martini SRC on it, and that was pulling about 1.9 grams. I've set it in grams. So it's an odd bit of kit, but I will be reviewing this. But any advice from you guys, if you've ever used one, that'd be great. But I'm just about to review this now.
Travis, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is that a piece of black foam tape on the black portion between the two white squares? Is that a little, you see on the behind the rails?
Yep. Do you want me to get it out?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you can do.
Without breaking it.
And it shouldn't be
So
that.
there is no tape. It's all aluminium anodized.
So what's that
it's
black,
running springs. So
what's that black
mate?
square there? What's that black square?
This here?
Yes, that little one. That one.
That's just the raised section, a milled out section of the actual aluminium. So that's just a raised section where the motor will sit on. So I'll show you what I mean. That's all part of the one bit of metal. So it'll just sit like that where you rest the motor on it.
I see.
Does that
It's
make sense?
aluminium. Yes, it does.
And then underneath you put the scales. So I've got the little set of scales that come with it, and that slides in underneath, which obviously then measures the magnetic pull in weight. It's interesting. I ran it yesterday. I was blown away. So I will be reviewing this. I haven't shown anyone this yet, so you guys are the first. But again, any advice on it? If you've used one, let me know.
Did you put the other piece of square underneath?
It doesn't look like it's competing directly with the magnet Marshall, but specifically addressing magnetic downforce created by the motor turning.
It only measures the magnet.
Oh, you've got one. Where did you get that from?
I got it the other day. It come.
What number's yours?
What number's mine?
Exclusive, number 10.
No, it's on the front. It's on the front.
Is it on the box?
There's only 500 of them. It should be stamped within here.
195, I think it is.
Very nice. Well, there you go.
Got it marked up somewhere. I know I marked it up somewhere. I can't remember what I've done with it now.
Trevor, in future, if there's any sort of tool or something that you really need, Petrucci's got it.
Yeah.
He's got it. He's my tool man. He's the toolbox.
Just ask him first.
Gadgets.
Yeah.
I like playing with these gadgets. Trying to learn that. But this is nothing to do, nothing similar to the magnet Marshall.
Yeah.
All this does is the magnet. You can't measure the body or anything else. So
interesting.
Yeah, it won't work as a set of scales.
it's just
You got
that scale underneath.
By itself, yeah. I mean,
There's another piece of metal to go between the scale and the thing.
I know so little about this. I don't know what questions to ask. So I'm going to wait for your review.
You see,
I have a question to ask.
Wait for the comments. What is he doing?
Yeah, well, I am only familiar with the magnet Marshall, which is, it's a scale, with a metal bar, so you can measure the weight and then delete the weight and then put the car down and measure downforce from traction magnets or motor, but it doesn't power the motor, right? So you can't see.
You're correct.
Yeah, so it looks like this device is specifically designed to find out how much downforce you get from a motor as it's spinning.
Exactly what it is. So when the motor's running, it will test what gram pull, I guess, downforce from the motor. You're spot on. Exactly what it does. Quite interesting, though.
Just tests the motor.
Yeah.
How much do those retail at? How much are those?
145 is mine.
Yeah, so about the same.
I couldn't tell you, to be honest. I don't know.
I got this from Pendle's.
Oh, yeah, Pendle's lot. Yeah.
145 pounds?
No, that's the number of the.
Okay, how many pounds does it cost, Petrucci?
I think it's about 190 euros, I think.
I think 140.
140 euros?
No, 119. So, let's find the bill here somewhere.
So maybe we should go to Pendle's slot car site real quick.
Going once, going twice.
I mean, either way, it sounds like it's about the same price as a magnet Marshall.
Yeah, I think it is. It's about 190 euros from memory.
Yeah.
119.50.
No. I mean, whatever.
Which is pound.
Too
many dollars
on a thing, you probably don't care between 119 versus 190. If you're buying that tool, you want that tool.
One is pounds and one is euros. It's the same price.
There are still some
pounds.
fundamental problems with these tools, though. And the fundamental problem with it is, if you're going to have a tool like this for scrutineering, at about 150 pounds. That means every member of the club has really got to be able to get one of these to set up and test their cars at home. Because you can't have people just turning up and then you put it on this device they've never seen before, and you tell them their car's illegal. You're going to annoy people. Now, if you've got a set of calipers, or you've got shims, or you've got a ride height thing you can use, or calipers to check the tire sizes, or scales for the weight of the car, these things are cheap as chips. But once you start hitting 150 pounds, and you're using that to scrutineer cars, everyone's going to need to have one, and that just it's an unreasonable ask.
So the other flip on that is, though, the club could have it, test the motors, and then obviously sell the motors, I guess. If you want to go the other way around, they could, I guess the club could have one, they run all the motors in and then hand the motors out. I guess that could be a way of scrutineering, but I'm with you on that. I understand that, definitely.
Travis, are the scales weighing the wheels?
No. So no, there's no weighing of the car at all. So all it weighs is the magnetic down of the motor. That's all it's weighing. Nothing touches the scales physically. I could probably get it running and showing you, but I don't want to blow it up yet.
Well, to Alan's point, even if one were to say anybody competing in a club where such a device was being used for scrutineering would, by virtue of them participating in such a club, be able to afford such a device. Let's just make that a given.
Yeah.
Can the device be made to have the same readings as the club device?
Only by calibration.
Yeah,
correct.
So can it be adjusted in such a way that if you put your car on your device, it will measure the same, within a certain tolerance of the club device? That was one of the biggest differences in the Magnet Marshal 1 versus the Magnet Marshal 2, is the ability to easily adjust it so that you can make two Magnet Marshals measure similarly. So that might
and there's not much point in having a crop of motors that all pull the same. It's actually about how you mount one in the car as to how much it pulls on the rails.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I mean, at the end of the day is long, so there are so many things. But in your review of that device, see if there's some way to calibrate it, if there's any way to adjust it in order to make it similar to other devices for that purpose. That might be worth seeing if it can be.
So what I found was interesting.
I was going to say, or Greg, could you have a standard car, for example, that would then calibrate each Magnet Marshal?
Well, you'd have to be able to adjust the Magnet Marshal.
Yeah.
You'd use the same car in order to adjust one to compare to the other. You'd use the same car.
Same car. Okay, right.
But in order to make them comparably measure, you'd have to be able to adjust one of them or both of them.
Right.
And of course, there is another solution, and that is, well, take the magnets out of the cars.
Take the magnets out of the motors, because that's what this is measuring.
No, yeah, exactly. It's not a solution anymore.
No, the solution.
The other question is, how many races? How many races have got Magnet Marshals?
With the DISCA rules, mandate a minimum ride height and ban certain motors. So you restrict the class to certain motors, and then you have a shim. I mean, anybody can cut up a credit card and use calipers to make a shim of the right height, and then you slide the shim under, and if the ride height isn't, let's say, 1.5 millimeters, it's too low. Very low tech, very effective. Once you get that motor up away from the rails, then because it's inverse square, every small amount up, quarters the downforce.
And think how happy the spouses will be when you cut up your credit card.
Cut up their credit card. Cut up their credit card.
And not buy $200 tools to determine whether or not
Yeah.
That's why a ground clearance rule has some. It's very simple and it has some thought behind it. It's clearly.
But easy to do. Again, at the end of the day, you need to be able to do it at least a quick. The Magnet Marshal does come in handy. Sure, you can slide a shim or a spacer or whatever. You can say this motor has to be this motor, and there are guys who know how to get around that stuff. They'll rewrap a motor after they rewind the can, and the shim doesn't matter. The motor looks the same. The shim works just fine. But you slap that car on a measuring device and it'll say, 100 grams more than the next car down. I'm not saying it's common, I'm just saying it's a thing. And that's literally why those tools were invented, is to prevent those things from actually impacting the race. Right?
How is that done, Greg?
What was
The
that way?
choice of running on a wood track.
How is
Yeah, but
how
then
is
you
that
got
done?
the wood magnets,
Mm,
tungsten
wood magnets.
axles and tungsten wheels and stuff like that.
Well, the wood magnets are wrapped around the rear wheels, aren't they?
I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Wayne?
You were telling that someone else can make a motor that pulls more than person B. I was wondering how you did it.
Yeah, no, I don't purport to be that person, so I don't. Maybe I'm conflating that with the people who can rewind the windings on a motor, get more RPM,
Yeah.
like that. But I'm not going to harp on the company making the tool. Obviously, they determined through whatever research they did that a tool such as this would be worth making. Maybe they saw that the Magnet Marshall was a thing, but they didn't want to directly compete with the Magnet Marshall, so they made this thing, because the Magnet Marshall can't do what this thing can do. That's reason enough for somebody out there to buy it, right?
I think the exciting thing is companies are taking risks, and again, I just glad that they've made. I mean, I don't know how to use it yet, but it's good that companies are sort of looking outside the square and not just making cars. They're going, let's try this or let's try this, but it's very much like F1. They're always going to try and find a little edge here or there, flexible wings. Like racing, there's always going to be some kind of cheating, I guess you can say. But I'd say hat off to SRC for just having a crack at it. I'll try and use it. I don't know yet.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's an old saying, you got to cheat to eat, right?
You got to cheat to eat.
Well, I'm looking forward to that review video for sure. And if
Thanks,
anybody else in here thinks of something they want Travis to include in his review, by all means, let me know.
Might need to take some time off work.
What are you showing off, Alan?
Okay, this is a follow-up from last week's talk. Remember, we had these motor adapters.
Yep.
And I expressed some concern that these motor adapters, let's just quickly review what they're meant to do. This is an adapter so that you can put an FC can, a short can or S can motor in a long can motor mount. So this clips on the end of the motor, and then and it fits in the motor mount. And my main concern with this was when I put this in the black arrow pod, first it puts the motor off to one side, and then I would have to cut the motor shaft. And this is all in preparation for the Rock Bull Ring, which is coming up at the end of July. So, typical use for this. Again, you guys seen this, right? So this is a slotted long can inline motor mount with this adapter on. So this is just an example of how I might use this. It moves the weight of the car a little further to the rear, and I can utilize the fact that this motor works better running clockwise than anti-clockwise, and I don't have to use the end bell to drive the pinion, which is that end bell bearing is never quite as good. So that's one. And the solution to that, and this came from the same Thingiverse, is a two-part adapter. Now the two-part adapter, let me see if I can spin this round so that you guys can see.
If the motor spins too fast for 4 hours, call a mechanic.
Yeah. Too fast. No, I don't need to call anybody, John. Don't need to call anybody. So this is a two-part adapter, and this allows, let me show you how this works. This is a black arrow chassis, and you can see that I've put the motor adapter for the MX-16 slotted motor, which is the homologated motor for the Rock Bull Ring event. So that I've now got that, so that the motor, the center of gravity of that motor, which is the armature stack, is now right along the center of the longitude of the chassis, which is what I was looking for. And so Mark Long produced these for me, and coincidentally created them in this cool purple color, which happens to match the spur, the slotted spur I'm going to use. An odd thing about this, when I downloaded it, or Mark downloaded it, was that I hadn't noticed, and I've got one of these here on the, this is a Shark motor. And if you look, this is a little difficult for me to do. If you look, these adapters were designed not to be the can drive. In other words, the this side for the pinion. It's clear that they were designed to be the end bell drive, so the pinion would go on this side, which is not what I want. Now, if you look at the tabs, you can see the holes. There are holes in here for screw holes, which is a bit confusing because the screw holes are in this side of the can, not on the end bell one, and the tabs where the motor wires would come out of an FK180 motor. Those are the tabs, and so it's clearly kind of, it's upside down and the wrong way around. But with a little bit of, work and a little bit of thinking and a little bit of chopping about, this is sort of how we're going to go. Hope you guys can see that. It's as close as I can get. You see, we've got a filter.
Alan, did you screw that one in already, or is it just snapped in for demonstration purposes?
It's just put in for demonstration purposes.
Oh, okay.
I'm still debating with myself whether we're going to glue the adapters to the motor. And if we do that, we need a separate set of adapters and a separate motor in case this motor explodes during the event. So, the motors are fragile, and after 6 hours they can go, but I've seen these motors last 24 hours. Mm-hmm. The winners at the last Le Mans at Gaydon used this motor for 24 hours. That was Club to Silipo. They didn't have any problems, and it was faster at the end of the event than it was at the start. So these motors are little monsters, really. That's astounding what they can do. So this is sort of how it's progressing.
Have you had an opportunity to get any track time with either version?
No. No, I'm much more the school of thought that says I want to get it so that I know that it's right before I put it on the track. I don't have a track here I can use. Now I've got to take this to a club, or I've got to take this to an event. But the truth is, this car won't get tested until the first day of the Rockwell Ring. This will be the first time it will see the track. Everything else will be done with test tools, the rolling road calipers, weights, torque testing, that kind of thing, to get this car to be as it should. So
has that worked out for you, or are you bringing a separate pod with the single piece adapter to see if that actually is worse?
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to bring another pod in case we break this one, but I've decided that this is the way to go because it's centrally aligned to the weight of the motor, which is really what I'm looking for. And I don't think I can do better than have the motor clamped at both ends. I've seen a lot of people put small can motors in long can motor mounts and not clamp them both ends, and I just don't really like that. It has to be done both ends to clamp the motor solidly.
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting don't use any adapter. I know that sometimes the scientific and logical conclusions don't necessarily match with the practical applications. So that's why I was just asking, if you're going to bring a pod with one of the one-piece adapters, just to see if it does perform lesser than what you expect this one to perform as. But as you don't have any pre-race testing opportunity really on the club track. You can test on a smaller track, but you want to.
It is a limitation of disco racing for us in Hertfordshire that we really don't have access to a slotted oxygen capable track on a regular basis. So everything has to be done with test tools.
I mean, even if you had a home oxygen track, it wouldn't be the same.
No, that's right. That's right.
But the thing about that is that the whole of the Saturday before the race on the Sunday is practice. But there's about 8 hours opportunity of testing and tuning.
And that we will use and abuse like never before. That test day, we're all going to be there, and we are going to test that. So
Alan,
So this is
the group obviously has one question it hasn't yet asked.
Yeah.
Can you wait that for us?
Can I what?
Wait.
I'm not the. What?
I
Oh,
mean, the 3D prints are like a gram. You know, the prints themselves are nothing.
Well, the
It's
white one
going
last
to
week
be-
was 2 grams, and I wonder whether
It's going
by
to
cutting
be
it in
2
half,
grams.
it managed to reduce the weight.
No, it's exactly the same thing, just cut in half.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 2 grams. I have to weigh it, but it's 2 grams. But anyway, so I've got another thing quickly. Slotted SCP controller. Been a lot of discussion about this and how this thing drops voltage under load. And I've been talking, liaising over email with Maurizio about this, and I've ordered I have the relays now, 20 amp, 12 volt relays. These things are small. I really didn't think that this would do the job.
Where did you get that? I want a tiny little one like that.
Yeah, these things.
Where's that going,
I
Alan?
got this off eBay, and it's cheap and cheerful. I think I got 3 for about £3 or something. They're cheap.
Wow.
Free postage. I mean, free postage. And the discussions with Maurizio were about, has anyone else done this? The answer seems to be he doesn't know. The question about whether Slotted offer this as a factory solution, and the answer is no. The other question, and the reason they don't offer this as a factory solution, is that Slotted consider that to be a modification in the same vein as putting a club plug on it. It's not their business. Once you've gone out the bottom of the wires, it's not the business of Slotted to tell you what to do here. This is not they don't provide these plugs. They don't do anything with these plugs. And Slotted consider that the relay solution is not part of something that they would offer because it would be built somewhere around here. And the question I put to Maurizio was, where would the relay best be fitted? It could either be inside the controller. I mean, you could put it inside the controller. I mean, it's small enough it would fit. You could strap it to the back of the controller here, where the telemetry box would go, which I don't use. You could put it in line. I mean, there's a fuse there on the high power SCP2, the metal cartridge SCP2, or you could put it actually on the plug or inside the plug. And actually, the answer I got was put it as close to the track as you can. And in fact, if the track allow you to, solder it to the track, make it part of the track infrastructure. So I've yet to decide exactly how I'm going to manage the relays. And what I'm going to do is wire it up, but not. So I'm going to wire it up so the relay clicks, but it will not make a difference. I'm not going to wire the power wires to the relay, just so that I can hear the relay click and see how it works and make sure that it all works. Exactly how I'm going to wire the relay in and what kind of box I'm going to use, I haven't decided yet. So that's a project in plan. That's me for this week.
You
Alan,
could
that's
have somebody who has a 3D printer, and the backside of that plug for your club plug hookup, I'm sure is a separate piece. He could easily, I mean, with a couple of pictures and measurements, I could design something that has an extra space inside for the relay to fit, and then it's all inside the plug. I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I like that idea, definitely, but it would still make the plug look obviously modified.
Well,
and
it's not like you're trying to keep a secret. You're not going to tell everybody, oh no, there's not a relay in my controller.
That's right.
And no one will hear it going click at all, will they?
Yeah. I will search Thingiverse to find out whether there's a BS546 plug top 3D print version. I doubt it, but we can scan one and design one. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go.
I bet the plug shell is absolutely available on Thingiverse, and modifying it to be bigger for a relay would be super easy. So,
and Alan, I'm going to suggest that you reread your Disco rule set, because I suspect that way that might not be legal.
Well, it's not a digital cartridge, so it wouldn't even affect Disco, would it?
Oh yeah, sorry, it wouldn't be legal on a yeah on a Disco rule set, which is digital. That's right.
It wouldn't
be relevant.
Before you open your
It's
mouth.
strictly for the analog cartridge, is it?
It's strictly for the analog high amperage metal cartridge. Yeah.
Metal. We love metal. I'm the devil. I love metal.
Well, does anybody have any questions for Alan on what he's talking about? Hearing none, we'll move on. Does anybody have any topics they'd like to bring up? Questions they'd like to ask? Dewan, I saw a finger. Go ahead, Dewan.
I want us to do this. And,
want to share something?
Yeah.
Cool. Oh yeah.
Thank you, Dennis.
Oh, did you get some nice stuff from Dennis?
Oh, these are the ones. These are some of the ones that you bought at the. These are the cars that you bought at the Electric Dreams grand reopening and swap meet.
Yes, this was my son. This is my Father's Day present.
Okay, the two chaparrals come out of that.
That's my kid, and this is my birthday present.
Oh, they arrived today, did they? Good.
Yes, they did. Thank you.
Cool. Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yes. But yeah, those chaparrals are wonderful. I love that they're very good performing cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they run really well. All four of those cars will run well, I'm sure.
Yes.
Dewan, your track looks it looks brand new.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm signing off.
Okay,
Tucci. So it looks like what I'm seeing is a slotted Group C on top, a sideways
Daytona prototype,
and then the slotted Classics pair.
Two out of the twin set.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say though, Dewan, your track looks brand new.
Yeah, it gets that way. It was just a system that I fell into, and it cleans up better than it was when it came out from the factory. I tell you.
That's gorgeous.
I've never seen that track system. Is that the Eldon?
No, that's
Revell.
Revell.
It reminds me of the somewhat of the Tomy HO system. The way that the little tabs, little rectangular tabs.
7-inch, 3.5-inch lane to lane, so you can run 124s. And I have shoulders or
borders,
aprons everywhere, so I do 124s.
Well, that's Redline 7000 right there.
That's arguably the best 32nd scale plastic track ever made.
And I think I've gone so overboard. I have well over 3,000 pieces.
No, sorry, I'm sorry, but no, you haven't got enough.
And is that because it's got a really slick surface finish that you get a good grip on, or is it due to electrical continuity, or why is it one of the best?
Well, it's. I mean, for its time, it had plastic lined slots in the rails. The connections were great. It was a gray color. The grip was. It was just great track. Just great track.
Yeah,
and they also had varieties. Oh, sorry, I was going to say they also had varieties of turn radiuses as well.
You could nest them very
it only had 2 turn radiuses. It only had 2.
That's it?
Yeah. So it let me see. Oh no, I don't have it. Let's see. I thought I had.
Well, if it only had 2 turn radiuses, then the 4-lane track is the maximum you can get them to go to.
That's all you can get is a 4-lane out of it. But I do love bridges and things like that. But I have enough track to make 2 of those Batman tracks right now.
Oh, awesome.
I'm only going to do 1. And then I'll probably set up a Carrera or something like that. Who knows? But I do have an exception. I just bought another 2 kits last weekend to the Montgomery Ward set that had 65 feet of track, and I have like 4 Americanas, which were the 4-laners that they had as so I've been at it. I just got obsessed with this. I don't know why. I do know why, but yeah. So anyway, I just want to thank Dennis for and you know, I tried to help out as much as I could with the estate sale that he was still having for his lost friend.
Yeah, you did a great job. Thank you very much, and everybody did. That the sale of that stuff raised many thousands of dollars for that family. So there's a pretty substantial college fund being set up for my friend Jay's 2 grandsons.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it worked very, very well.
Just before we go anywhere else, I just wanted to tell Wayne, I sent you an email, you didn't respond.
That's right. I have read it. I have received it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I do have a fly motor. Unfortunately, it does not have the wrapper, so it looks like it's probably not worthwhile sending it to you if you're going to be.
That's right.
That motor is exactly basically the same spec as a Fox 10. It was about a 25, 26K motor.
Well, that's a lot more than the FK 180 long cam that's in the car. I think that's rated at 14 volts or 14 point something volts, and it's 21 and a half or something.
Yeah, that motor was the quickest motor they put in any of the fly cars in the fly racing by far.
Well, I do have a story about my most recent experience with that car. I have a few photographs. They may come out later in the chat if we're
it looks like
scratching
Brian's ready to show something off. Did you want to show off some new cars or new track there, Brian?
Sure, if you guys don't mind. Did a little work on the track this week. I received a nice box from Electric Dreams, and the track is now, it was altered slightly. I added the S's here. That was a straightaway. This was a radius 3 turn originally, but I needed those to complete that section. So radius 2 turns into another R3, into the hairpin, back to R2. But the big thing is it's all bordered now on the outside, which I didn't have before. So that was nice. Electric Dreams had the black borders. I'm not crazy about the brown ones. I think they're okay on the hairpin. But you notice I did replace the center disc there with the black. The tan one looked crazy to me. Ignore the blue piece of the tape. Those are my power taps, and it's just letting me know direction of travel while I was putting things together. So I didn't short anything. The lanes are within 10 inches of each other, and it's just over 65 feet. So
that's nice.
That's pretty nice. Well done.
It's kind of Formula One, I guess, in the design. Some of the inspiration, Dennis, your friend, I was watching some old ones. So I've had this layout for a while, but the S is a new addition there. Your friend who had the one with the corkscrew at the end.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat similar to his layout. My infield's a little bit different. And I'm not doing anything with elevations. I tend to change my track enough, and the amount of support to do elevations properly to me with Scale Electrics becomes more or less permanent. Because if you don't support the track for the full length, it tends to warp the track over time. But Electric Dreams came through. They had the black pieces, and they were actually cheaper than buying the tan pieces. The only thing they didn't have is they didn't have the radius 2s. And I only needed about 8 of those. So eBay came through. I bought a bundle off of there. But what surprised me a lot about Electric Dreams is they included pornography in my box. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but this is without
yeah, we got a whole bunch of those.
Beautiful catalog for slot cars I've ever seen. I mean, when Chris was talking about his guide he used, I actually looked it up. Part number's in here. I think it's part number 5409. So absolutely stunning catalog. I was quite surprised. I mean, there's some money in this here. There you go. There's Chris's guide he used, 5409.
With the little guide screw. Go back to there.
I see it. Yeah, I see it. I see it. I have
all
been.
right, Dennis, I get it.
hopefully do this catalog. So I took next week off, so the rest of the table is going to get finished. It's going to get a new paint job, and I'm going to redo borders around the outside. We are magnet racers, so occasionally the cars do have a tendency to hit the floor.
Do you have a filament printer, Brian, or just the resin?
I do.
So you can print out some of my flat borders for that hairpin section there.
Yeah, but they're ugly as shit, so I probably wouldn't bother. No, I'm teasing. I have some other ideas for that. But your borders are definitely on the short list. The problem is in some of these cases, my ends run right to the edge of the table. I have used some of this gutter guard in the past in conjunction with the guardrail. You can actually drill the tops out on these and fit a bamboo skewer in there, and it works quite well.
Well, I imagine that would help keep them from falling on the floor as well, Brian.
Yeah, that's what he's talking.
I didn't mean my walls. I meant the curb inserts. So you can get rid of those stupid red and white bumped curb inserts on the hairpin borders and replace them with flat inserts like the black borders have.
Those.
Yes, those.
Yeah, I like those. They're all right. I know they're not flat, but you know what? We don't go through that turn with enough speed where it's really an issue. The other interesting thing is this track runs very well in both directions, but we typically run in this direction, as you can see, counterclockwise from the driver's stations. Running it the other way, it changes the dynamic a little bit because the way it's set up now, the end of the straights are all R3s. Yep. So you're going into big sweepers at the end of both of the long straightaways. When you run the other direction, you're going into these kinked R2s. So it does make a little bit of a difference in the way you run the track, but it runs nicely in both directions, which I was very, very happy about. I mean, I've had tracks before that ran great in one direction and were horrible in the other.
It looks really, really nice, Brian.
It does.
Thank you. Thank you. The track's getting a little old. This stuff's about 10 years old. So I got a few straights that are a little wrinkled here and there from people leaning on them when they're going over the table and stuff, but she runs pretty well. Like I said, I use a webcam for both pit stops and lap timing. I run Ultimate Racer 3.0. As you can see, there's my start finish line. Between the blue pieces of tape is where you stop to refill your gas. So as long as you coast and stay within those two blue lines, it will refuel you. About a 5-second refuel. You want to just do a quick splash and go, you can do that as well. The other thing I have is more of just a tell, not a show and tell. I was watching some YouTube videos the other day, and I saw this schmuck on there talking about the basic controls on an SCP-2.
What a jerk.
And how they work. Yeah, a guy was pretty much a jerk.
I mean, just like condescending and everything. Yeah, I hated that video.
He's a freaking know-it-all is what it is. But times he hits the nut. You know, even a blind squirrel finds a nut now and then. But you know what? Because I had talked last week or the week before, I was asking about controllers, and Chris said, you know, quit mucking around, spend some money, get a decent controller, and don't look back.
And you went on an SCP.
And I went with an SCP-2. And the reason is I was looking at several different controllers, and it ticked all the boxes for me for what I wanted as far as features go. A question on that, is that one upgradable to wireless?
Yeah.
Can you put a wireless cartridge in it like the SCP-3? Right now, I don't run wireless. I like the brake control, and that's not much of a function so much on an analog track. Not with the Scale Electrics ones. I have an Arc Air system.
Oh, yeah.
I'm probably going to sell it. I've got a brand new one with 4 controllers. That's just collecting dust. It ticked the boxes for me. And your video was quite helpful. I mean, I'd looked through the manual, but I think you gave a great explanation on where to start, you know, what to look for. Obviously, great advice, you know, tweak one thing at a time. You know, when we were talking about tuning slot cars earlier, my friend and I talked about motorcycles. We used to big into bikes, and we used to say we can tune it to a standstill. You know, that's our skill level. So I'm looking forward to that. It should be here Friday. So I ordered one to start with. Kind kind of snuck it under the radar on the life there. So
So I saw
If
that
I-
I saw that your track used standard club hookups. I assume you just got a standard SEP2 with analog cartridge.
Yep, that's what I bought. That's exactly what I bought. Now, question on this, my driver stations have 25 ohm brake pots on them already. Same function on the SCP-2. Is that a compound effect if I have two of them, or do I want to turn the driver stations one completely down to no brakes and strictly use the brakes on the controller? Or will a combination, well, let's put it this way. With two brake pots, am I getting double the brakes?
I think I'll let Dennis take that one.
You're gonna, if you want to use the functions on the SCP-2, then I would turn the pots on the track all the way to maximum brakes and let the controller control the brakes. Otherwise, everything that you do on the controller is going to be whatever you set on the pot on the track is going to add to what's going on the controller, right?
I'd have thought that would be the other way around.
Same here. Same here.
You should
When
turn it
you-
all the way up.
If I didn't have there, I would have maximum brakes, I guess.
Say again?
If I did not have the brake pot on the driver station, I would have maximum brakes, not minimum brakes, correct?
Correct.
So wouldn't I want to turn that all the way down so it's not having any effect? And then just use what's on the controller?
No, because what every kind of brake setting does for you is it takes away the inherent braking of the car. You are not a single one of the brake systems that we use increase the braking of the car. They all decrease the braking capability of the car.
Okay, so full on would be like default.
So the default setting is full on brakes always. So
Okay.
if you, in other words, if you had no pot on your track, you would have the full braking capability of the car. Then as you increase the resistance of that pot that's on the track, you are decreasing the braking of the car.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Now, if you had that turned so that you're on minimum brakes, and then you start turning the controller, you're going to get less and less and less brakes, right? So the only time that you might need to use them both is if one or the other does not reduce the braking capability far enough for what you're looking for.
Okay.
If I could explain it differently, because I think I understand what you're saying. So the
Yeah,
way
and I don't explain very well.
no,
Yeah, go.
it's all about how brains work, and different brains work differently.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a discussion I had with my wife the other day. It just doesn't make any sense, but the conclusion was brains work differently. And so what you're saying is that essentially braking works the opposite of the control of the throttle. When you activate braking, you're basically shorting the connections of the motor, so the motor becomes a generator and slows itself down. By introducing a resistance value, you are doing less of a short. So
Correct.
resisting the short, so therefore the motor cannot slow itself down as effectively as a straight short.
Because it's having to generate it's generating that back EMF through a higher resistance.
And so if you have a knob on your station that's adding that resistance to create braking, you're introducing that resistance to the short. So you want it, so that makes it brake more, or that makes it brake less. And then you're doing the same thing on the control. So yeah, that makes sense. But I've never had brakes on my controller station separate from my controller. So that never occurred to me.
Yeah, I've never seen that either. I mean, we've seen Luff's tracks with the power adjustments, but I don't think I've seen them with the brake adjustments.
And Garth has
Garth has it. Yeah.
Oh, Garth has it. That's right. Yeah.
I think my original schematic came off of a slot car corner, but I can't swear to that. I think it did. But I've had these since I built them, because I was my first upgraded controller was just 25 ohm Parmas.
Mhm.
There was nothing special about them. And I like the idea, when I was going to build the stations, I started looking into it, and it's like, well, a brake circuit, that might be neat. I also have a reversing switch on it. So I can run, each lane separately in different directions. Never done that. Probably not a good idea.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
maybe
but
not with
use cars that you don't care for very much, but
Yeah,
it's fun.
Death
Yeah,
Race
lots
is
of bits and
something-
pieces when you're done.
good one for scale electric starts, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, the crash resistant stuff. Yeah.
So basically, by turning that potentiometer up to full braking, it's like taking it out of the loop.
Correct.
Altogether. Okay. So what would the effect be if I turned it down where it's giving minimum? Would that give me less brake control on the controller, I assume then?
I would
Yes.
think so, yes, because you're
Okay.
going to get to a point where there's so little braking that whatever the controller's trying to do is not going to have any different, not going to make any difference anyway.
And I guess ideally, the best I could hope for would be the same as having the pod on the driver's station turned to full brake.
Depending
If I
in
had it
terms
turned
of
full-
maximum brakes,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll turn it all the way up and take it from there. But Alan, you gave me a bit of heart attack there.
A general principle, though, if you got that kind of control on your track, and quite a lot of the old club tracks do have that, because the tracks were put together before electronic controllers came about. And so the only way to adjust your brakes was on the track, because they were just regular rheostat controllers. So as a general principle in the modern age, where you've got pulse width modulation type controller like the SCP2, is you either use the controller brakes and set the braking on the controller, or you use the ones that are built into your plug-in point. And generally, the best way to manage it is you set the brakes to maximum on the track plug point, and then you manage your brakes with your controller. The only exception to that I've found is quite a complicated scenario, because a lot of modern electronic controllers have a sweep time release mechanism in their brakes. There's a way to do that. The SCP2 has it.
Yeah.
And the SCP2 does not have a way to adjust the initial bite of the brakes when you're using sweep time release. It always comes on at 100% and then releases in the time that you set with the controller. And some cars get destabilized by that initial bite. And I've got several cars that, I'm heading to the end of the straight, they're absolutely tanking it down the straight. You let go of the throttle, the brakes come on full, and at that point, the car starts skidding and doing crazy stuff and juddering. And what you really want to do is not to have that brake come in so hard. There's no way to do that on the SCP2. So the way to do that is to crank down the brakes a little on your track control, and then you can manage the rest of it with the SCP2 sweep time. But that's quite advanced stuff. So as a general principle, if you've got a good controller like these, put your brakes to maximum on the track and manage your braking with the controller.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is, if I decide to use the sweep control, I may consider turning the track brakes down a little bit, so it's not
Correct.
quite so much of a hard stop when you're backing off the brakes.
Yeah. And that's if you decide to use sweep versus regular brakes, because on regular brakes you can just turn it down.
Right. And Alan, you did give me a minor heart attack, because I haven't even got this SCP2 thing yet. And here you are, you pull up this SCP2 and start talking about power droppage problems and having to solder in relays. And I'm thinking, I just spent $140 on a science project, what the hell?
Okay, no. Let me explain this, okay? Let me explain this. It's very important. It's very important that you don't think that this controller has defects or problems. Honestly, I use this controller, and if it has any downsides, they are way outweighed by the positives I get. I get much better control. The thing works every week and never lets me down. Unlike the rheostat controllers, where I'm always having to scrub the bloody rheostat with lighter fluid, and it lets me down, and the contact doesn't work, and then it gets loose, and then I ended up one night getting so frustrated I just threw the controller in the bin. The SCP2 never lets me down. It's there every week for me, and it works all the time. And all these controls, you know, all these different things on here, they work perfectly. I understand them all now, and I make the most of them. So if there is a 0.01 voltage drop off the line with a big motor, it's not a big deal. I mean, what I'm doing with the relay, that's a science project. You do not need that. Definitely, you do not need that if you're using it as a regular club controller or at home. You only need that if you're interested in what the opportunities are and the possibilities are for that minuscule technical advantage. And if
So
you know,
really
there are
only need
people
that-
like,
You only really need that if you're a maniac, is what you're telling me. A metal maniac on top
Yeah.
of it. Okay.
that's me,
I think-
Metal Maniac. That's me. Yeah. So
You're all about
the real scientific term for that is SCM, speed crazed moron.
moron. Well, all I can say is you're all nothing but a bunch of enablers. I hope you know that. You know, not
Brian, that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
my original goal was to
Popcorn.
spend, I was looking to spend about $60 a piece on controllers, and that budget got blown out of the water. Thank you, Chris Walker.
But at least it's
It's
just
worth it.
controller. You're not having to buy any more controllers.
Yeah, I should only have to buy it once, and that was the selling point. You know, it's like I said, we're not hardcore racers here. I'm not competing, but you know, you still want the maximum enjoyment out of it. And I just noticed with some of the high-end cars, you know, especially with the 35 ohm Professor motor, some of those you got to give a pretty good squeeze. You know, almost 35% of the trigger to get the thing to even move. Now, once it's moving, it's a little bit different. You got a little more control down low, but hopefully this will serve me well. So thank you, Chris, for the advice. Thank you, Greg, for the video. It was the tipping point. So actually, I am pointing the finger at you
Okay.
specifically, but
I'm
I
okay
do
with that.
appreciate the input, and I will keep you posted.
Well, I have one bit of information that I did not include on my video. Oh, there's Garth's. He's got all kinds of fancy things. He's got coast and brake. You don't need an SCP at Garth's track, that's for sure. Very nice. He's old school. What I was gonna say on the SCP, I have a little story from last night. We raced. The heat on Monday was crazy in my area. Break all-time records and all that. You've probably heard about it already. 115 in the Pacific Northwest. Does not happen ever. So we raced last night when after the heat wave started to go down at somebody's track who had air conditioning, which was nice. Anyway, as per usual, we raced a King of the Hill, and the King of the Hill car was an NSR Mosler, and I forget the specific motor that was in it. Probably stock, but it was 25K or higher. It was crazy. It was crazy twitchy and fast. And I basically did all the things that I normally do to turn it down. You know, like I flipped the fast slow switch down to slow, and I turned the blue knob down. I used curve. I turned the yellow knob down. You know, I basically did everything I could think of to make it as not twitchy as possible. And I managed to get it around the track a few times. I was the first person to run the car because I'm still at the top of the King of the Hill list. Hopefully not after tonight or last night, because I was not the fastest last night. And I think I probably would have been faster if I had used kid mode on the SCP, which is also known as choke, depending on your definition of choke. To do that, for anybody who has an SCP-2 and is unaware or is getting an SCP-2, you hold the brake button and you have the switch on top set to standard. All right, so right in the middle, you hold the brake button, and then you plug it in or flip the power switch to your track so that the controller gets power. And then you flip the switch from standard to slow. Then you can release the brake button. So circle, plug it in, standard to slow, release. And what that does is it turns the blue knob into a maximum power. So the reason it says curve/max on the blue knob indicator is because in that mode, it is your maximum power limiter, so a choke. What I found when testing this, I should have used that mode, but what I found when testing this, because somebody was saying, oh, SAP doesn't have choke, and I had to tell them, yes, and in fact, it does have choke, 2 kinds of choke. Even when you've put the controller into kids mode, it does not limit your speed unless you leave that switch in slow and the linear / curve switch on the back is in linear mode. So you could leave your controller in kids mode all the time and simply switch between slow. Like if you need to use kid mode, put your switch on top into slow, make sure the switch on back is linear, and then that knob is kids mode. But if the top switch or the back switch is anything other than linear and slow, that curve max knob is the same as it always was. So you just put it in standard or fast or curve mode. I tend to use curve mode, so I forget that I can even do the kids mode. So you could literally leave the controller in that mode all the time. And just remember that if you want to use maximum speed limitation, standard and linear, and then that knob is your maximum speed limitation, which comes in super, super handy when you got a speed crazed moron car like that 25, probably 28K motor in that Mosler running 12 volts or something on this wood track. It was crazy fast. I could hardly keep it under control. I wish I had used that limiter because I probably would have gotten a better lap time with lower power, with lower maximum power.
Yeah, because you're dropping the voltage then.
Yeah, and then all the other controls would have been more beneficial.
Yeah.
To having, because I had to turn everything down. It was like,
of course.
Yeah. I need to remember kids mode is a useful thing, not just a kids thing.
Well, the finger wouldn't work for a maximum throttle
The
controller then.
Wasn't working at the time. I mean, I still got a respectable time, and it was the first time the car hit the track. So every progressive person, every person after me got a fresh application of tire cleaning fluid on the NSR trip. So they got more and more traction as the night went by. But still, I'm pretty sure I could have shaved a tenth or two, at the least a tenth, if I had just limited the power, because it was so uncontrollable. To be able to turn the max down a little bit and then put my normal throttle curve stuff where I like them to be, probably would have gotten me a tenth at least. So
there is a school of thought that when you turn these controls to that extreme where you've got a lot of curve, that you actually build in a kind of switchiness to the control, because it's doing nothing, and then you get near to the top and suddenly it's doing a heck of a lot right at the very top, and it becomes uncontrollable because it's all at the end of the control throw.
Yep.
So you lose that ability to control, and it becomes like a switch at the top. So it's a thing to use, but it's a thing to be careful that you don't use it too much.
Yeah, and that's basically what I discovered, because we have 10 laps to get our hot. We have 2 practice laps, and then we can clean our tires one more time, and then we get 10 laps to get our hottest lap. And so anytime I came off, I was like, okay, what can I change to maybe get a better response to the way that I drive this car, or to the way that I drive stock cars in general, to get this car to drive like how I drive it. And so I found, at first I was like turning the blue knob down, turning the yellow knob down, turning everything down, and I still couldn't. It was still doing just like you said. I had nothing at the bottom of the trigger, and it was just a switch at the top. What's the point? So then I ended up turning stuff back up, and trying to let my finger do more of the work, but it still was just too damn fast for that track at that voltage. And I'm like, later on, I'm talking to one of the guys. I'm like, I could have had a V8. I wish I had used the kid mode. I probably would have done better. I'll remember that next time somebody puts a crazy fast car on the track, for sure. But yeah, so anybody out there, don't forget that's a thing. It's not hard to do. It's very useful. I'm done. Go ahead, Big Ben.
Greg, a few episodes ago, I was expressing a little bit of doubt whether I could use my DS controller on a track that had the track adjustment as well. I had to bite the bullet recently because I blew the brake pod in my Professor motor controller, but I can happily report that smoke didn't arise from my controller, and I'm happy now that you know, the advice I think I received from Chris and others was that I should be able to use it because slottets are also what's it called, PWM. So the happy result there. I have had a friend called Phil replace the brake pod in my Professor motor, and it was quite interesting. You know, you when the brake pod blows, you've got full brakes when it's full brakes. As soon as you start to turn it down, you have no brakes. And I would endorse the comments of you know, have your track braking system turned up full and just use your controller to control the power. You know, the variable brakes. Sorry, the variable brakes, not the power.
It seems to be dependent on maybe where your brakes were set when you blow them, because I know some of the guys that hook up wrong and blow their brakes fairly regularly. They've just given up on trying to on repairing the brake pod, but their brake pods still have something, right? So like you were saying, if it's on full, otherwise it's not. That they'll have dead spots. Like they'll have adjustment to a certain point, and then nothing, and then nothing, and then a little bit. So it's like,
well, it possibly be, yeah. But being a wire wound pot, it may even depend on where the brake is now. You know, when Phil pulled the old one apart, you could actually see that the windings were broken close to the maximum setting. So even then, I think if the wire had been broken, it probably would have been defunct all the way from, you know, 80% down to, or 90% right down to zero anyway. The other thing too is that if Gazza keeps doing that's a knife jokes, I'll have to change my name to Crocodile Dundee.
For all you guys that hook up wrong and blow brakes, you need to buy one of Dennis's little idiot control wire things.
all right, let me spotlight Dennis.
What is that?
How does this prevent me
What is
from
that?
hooking up wrong, Dennis?
But doesn't these work for guys like us who work with alligator clips, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really work for anything else. But basically all it is a little plexiglass strip with 3 of these little cable routing things on them. And what you do the first time you get to the track, you line it up, you hook your red and your white and your black in whatever order they need to be, and you plug the lead into those. And then when you unhook and you go to the next lane, everything's still in the right order, right? So yeah, it works pretty easy. I sell a bunch of these. I've actually been sitting this afternoon making up an order for one of the stores, the web stores. He ordered like a dozen of them, and so I sell a lot of these. Very simple, very easy. You just pop your wires in there and just make sure the first time you connect up that they're in the right order, and then from there onwards you should be okay. I mean, I've done it that I've had it hooked up for one track and then gone to another track where it's in a different order and forgotten to check that and blow the fuse in the controller anyway. But I mean, you know, this you can't fix stupid, you know.
It's a very, very handy item for anyone who can't differentiate between 3 basic colors.
The thing about it is, you know, when you have 2 minutes to change lanes and your car's not working and you're rushing and, you know, you're hot and sweated, and Mike's nodding his head there, he knows, that very often you do get it wrong.
And that's why 3-pole connectors should be abolished, and there should be a standard. But
there should be, but there isn't.
Yeah, you can't get anyone to agree on a standard.
No.
Another little thing, Dan, when you're, or anybody who uses controllers with pots, you really shouldn't adjust the pots while you're driving. You should test the car, see what it does, release the trigger on the controller and adjust the pots. So if you try, and we see this at our club all the time, guys are driving around and they're, you know, moving the pots left to right, back up and down. They're pretty sensitive little things, and they can burn out pretty easily if you you know, mess around with them. So, you know, try the car. If it's not enough brakes, let the controller off, adjust the brakes, try it again, try it again, try it again.
Well, I usually suffer from the age problem of only being able to do one thing at a time anyway. So
Perfect.
pulling a trigger, and so I drive one-handed. You know, I can't really adjust the brakes as I'm going. I have to stop and adjust the brakes. Some of the younger blokes, and I'm talking about the younger blokes in our club, I'm 30 and 40-year-olds. Yeah, they're adjusting everything on the fly, checking out their lap times, and you're telling you what the best lap time they've done so far. Oh, look, I just did a 6.3 then. Yeah, all the time driving and staying on the track, and I don't know, multitasking taken to its stupid limit. So.
I think that my friend George Kimber, who's a big successful slot car racer in the UK, George always says, watch people when they come off. If the guy comes off and the first thing he does is look at his controller and change the settings, you know that it's not the controller that is the problem. It's the driver that is the problem. He's just looking for something to blame.
You see that a lot.
The last time I raced in Hobart, we still had a video camera. One of our guys gets very animated when he drives, and it almost looked like he was doing the Lambada or something on a particular lane. I hear, oh yeah, no, and he was actually two-stepping back and forth. His feet, the movement on his feet was incredible. I said to Phil at one stage, you're going to have to open the door there, Phil, because you're going to go right back out that far. You know, the way he's moving back and forth, you know, away into the track and away from the track. I'll see if I can take a surreptitious video of him sometime, you know.
Yeah, Dan, that's a great idea, and then we can set it to music.
Yeah,
it's already been done. It's been done. There's a really good video. I think it's called like Racing in C Major or something like that. I forget.
Yeah, I've seen that one. But Alan can give the heavy metal background. John can do the choreography, maybe.
Yeah. Well, talking about setting to music, I think it was last show we were talking about a theme for the you know, for the chat.
It's in the works. I've got some thumb sketches for approval from the executive committee over here. Give me a week or two before I just do a quick mix so he can figure out what he wants. We'll do a couple, see what the difference is.
Maybe
if it was me being essentially lazy, I'd try to rework the old Sailor song "Worldwide Traffic Jam" into "Worldwide Slot Car Chat." So,
hey,
get the top of your theme song.
Before we log off, I see Steve on here today. He hasn't said a word, and he's been holding up this little yellow, looked like a 9083. I want to see what he's doing there.
Have you been showing off and I missed it, Steve? All right, show it off. Unmute. Oh, you're muted.
I wonder if he's ever blown
There you
his
go.
brake. Oh, sorry.
It's 3D printed. Remember, we're doing a proxy. You've seen it on HRW.
Yeah.
So that's the first one I built for that proxy.
Oh wow! And so that's a 3D print body, not an NSR body.
No, everything here is 3D printed.
Wow, nice.
So
file.
I just want to make one that's a little lighter. So here's the new body. So Dennis, these bodies now weigh. This one weighs 7 grams.
Wow.
You know,
I was going to ask Steve if he'd gotten any of his body shells into the Can-Am Proxy that Chris was speaking of earlier.
Pardon?
I was going to ask you, Steve, have you managed to get anyone to run any of your body shells in the Can-Am Proxy that Chris was speaking of earlier?
No, I have not. And we just, remember, did that little 3D printed one. I wouldn't mind entering them. You can, you know, down the road we will. But right now we're trying to just we put all these bodies. We have 5 models of the 9083. We put them all in cults today, free and then guys can sign up for the Proxy that we're just getting started.
Nice. And
so-
did you the rear end detail, is that also 3D print?
Yes,
And the wheel inserts
yes,
and the chassis?
yes.
Okay.
I was gonna
Cool.
say, are the chassis files available too?
No, no.
Oh, well,
I think we're putting one up, but guys can build chassis out of anything they want to, whether they can build them out of brass or 3D print them, anything, as long as they don't just buy them.
okay.
So we got two guys over in the Isle of Man they're making theirs out of brass. I think the rest of us so far are 3D printing kind of our own designs. But we do have one we're putting up on Cults, just in case somebody wants to grab it.
I was gonna say,
Putting up on where?
Cults 3D.
Cults 3D, CULTS.
Oh, Cults.
Well,
They're
Steve,
all free.
that turned out really well. And you did a
Very
great
nice.
job painting it as well.
Yeah, they're getting better all the time, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is painted already, and it's still only 7.5.
Oh, that's painted.
Yeah,
Wow.
with one coat of clear, in fact.
And does a 9083 as a slot car run really, really well? Because I
Yes.
saw one running at my club the other week.
Well,
Sorry,
they're
Friday night.
well,
and it looks like a really short car.
Oh, they're short, they're light, they're small. You know, the NSRs this one can't keep up with the NSR that came out, but we're only talking 0.3 of a second. And that's my track average time is 12.5 seconds. So that's pretty good, you know, it's just a 3D. You can't compete with the great chassis that NSR makes and Slotted make yet. At least none of us have figured get as good. You know, 3D printing them, but you can get close. And we still use slotted pods because nobody can figure out a way to print a pod with consistency. It's a Sidewinder.
I think the car I watched was a NSR, and it would have been all stock. I would think
They're fast.
It did look like it had got something about it that looked capable, but it wasn't performing as I would have hoped, you know. But I just wondered whether it was the fact that it was so short that was upsetting it.
It depends on the track. I mean, you know,
It
some
does.
tracks like a short car. You know, like on my home track, the 9083 is a rocket on my track. It only has a 21K motor in it, so it's not overpowered. And you know, like anything, it will depend on who tuned it and who set it up and all of those things. But it's a nice car.
It is.
The NSR.
Yeah, Steve's track's fairly tight and twisty with a lot of corners, so a short back lead is not, you know, a disadvantage by any stretch of the imagination.
And on that note, we're going to end the recording, but as always, we'll keep chatting. So come and attend a live chat like Travis did, and we will enjoy your company and answer your questions and share your knowledge and say goodbye. Bye.